I want to thank Donna Michael for her music, beautiful music today, and also Nancy Wirtz for doing our reading. Last week we talked about changing the world one person and one action at a time, and today we want to talk about falling into the all of the divine. It's officially fall, evidenced by the leaves that are falling from the trees, and the days are getting shorter. And it's interesting how the trees don't try to cling to the leaves that are falling off. They just readily release them to make way for a new season and for something new. And if we want to truly relax into the arms of the divine, to really fall into that all and embrace all of our divine inheritance, what's important is that we consider being more like the trees and not clinging to those things that are no longer serving us. So your question for this week is this: what is the one choice that you might make to release what needs to be released so that you can fully relax into the arms of the divine and be renewed? One more time. What's the one choice that you might make to release what needs to be released so that you can fully fall into the arms of the divine and be renewed? Such a great thought, being renewed. As humans, most of us don't readily release the things that no longer serve us. We aren't much like the trees in that aspect. Yet what I know to be the truth is that we must release the old stuff to make space for new stuff. You've heard the phrase, out with the old, in with the new. Their phrase starts out with the old, but we hang on to the old and then try to stuff more stuff on top of it, and it starts to weigh us down. So the message today is about making space for new habits and new ideas and new goals, all of which require us to examine what we have cluttering our current space, what's cluttering our minds, our hearts. Where are we clinging to old ideas, old beliefs, that old stuff that's no longer serving us? We cannot truly relax into the arms of the divine and into all that we can be if we cling to useless things, old resentments, old traumas, old ways of doing and being that no longer are in our best interest. There was this old farmer, and he had plowed around this rock for years and years in his field. He had broken several plows and a cultivator on it, and he had actually grown rather morbid about the rock. And when he finally broke another plow on it, he decided that the rock had given him enough trouble and he was going to do something about it. So he went to dig it up, and he got a crowbar and he put it under the rock, and he realized that the rock was only buried about 6 inches deep. And it actually surprised him to discover that it was rather easy to remove. It wasn't really that thick, and he could break it up with his sledgehammer. And as he finished doing that and clearing that space, he was kind of smiling to himself because he remembered all the trouble that that rock had caused him for years and years because he hadn't done something about it. How many things in your life are causing you trouble because you don't bother to do something about them? We cling so tightly to things. We create workarounds. The farmer plowed around the rock for years and years. Often that's out of habit. Sometimes it's out of avoiding whatever's going on. Sometimes it's out of indifference. And other times it's out of habit. There's that story about the grandchild who was asking her grandmother, why did she cut off the end of the ham when she put it in the pot? And the answer was, because that's the way my mother and my grandmother did it. The truth was, pots used to be smaller in the olden days, and the ham wouldn't fit. So it made sense back then to cut off the end so the ham would fit in the pot to be cooked. But the pots are much larger now, and there was no reason to cut off the end of the ham and to labor trying to do that, other than it was history, it was habit. So it's like the man and the plow. Sometimes we unconsciously do things out of habit. I'm going to invite you to think about what your closet looks like. Is it so full that you have to issue an avalanche warning if you want to go get something out of it? Seriously, I have sometimes stuff, so many things in my closet that just getting a pair of pants out is difficult. And it's like I'm not going to buy anything new because they won't fit. I won't have any place to put it. Sometimes our closets are so full of old clothes, or our sheds are so full of that unused fishing gear, or those unused gardening tools. Or our brain is cluttered with incomplete agreements, broken promises, past resentments. Sometimes we have unresolved emotional trauma that takes space in our brains. And it's pretty hard to make space for something new, or to really be available for something new, if we have all of that clutter. So, in order to really fall into the all, it requires us to clean and clear out on a lot of different levels. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially, and even spiritually. It has to do with falling into that space of the divine and having the space for whatever it is the divine wants to tell you to show up. If you want to truly relax in the arms of the divine and listen to what's next in your life, like new friends, a new career, a new job, a new attitude on life, even a new car or a new relationship, you have to clear out the old to make room for it. We have to take that example from the trees to just allow the leaves to fall, to let that old stuff fall and be left behind. And what we know is when the leaves fall, they start to generate something that's new. And they actually fertilize the ground. So if your mind and your heart and what I call the bookshelves of your life are full, it's impossible to make room for new things that might bring a brighter future. Think about this. If you want new friends in your life, but you pack your schedule so tightly that you don't have any time for them, do you really think they're going to show up? And if you want a new romance, but you're still angry with your last partner, or still holding on and talking about all of the things that your last partner did to you, do you truly think that you're emotionally available to somebody else showing up in your life? Those are just a couple examples. I've seen people walk down the street and actually cross over because they didn't want to run into somebody that they had some kind of old emotional baggage with. We don't know if it was something that was an old resentment. Maybe they owed them money. I don't know what it was about, but avoiding connecting with a person that you have some old business with, some incomplete business with, is not the solution. It's definitely not the way that you are going to make progress in your life. So if incompletes are weighing you down, broken promises, broken agreements, personal relationships that have unstated resentments or unforgiveness, you haven't yet forgiven what happened, all of these clutter your mind. And when they're cluttering your mind, they weaken your focus and they draw you away from what it is you really want and what you really think is important in your life. But if we keep relaxing and we keep learning how to just release those old things that are cluttering us, we can actually embrace the future. It does require us, though, to let go of the past. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of the city of Sodom, and Lot and his wife and his family were leaving, and all that God had said is, don't look back. Well, Lot's wife couldn't stand it. She looked back and she instantly turned into a pillar of salt. Now, we're all familiar that salt is a preservative. This is a very metaphorical message. When we clutch on to the old, when it's no longer serving us, because the city of Sodom was no longer a place for them to be, but she was clutching to that old, leaving a home that she didn't necessarily want to leave. We become petrified at some level. We can't preserve the past and hang on to it so tightly that we don't have any space for moving into the future. So Alan Cohen, in A Deep Breath of Life, wrote this: when we hold on to anger, hurt, or resentment, we only hurt ourselves. By withholding love from another, we deny it to ourselves. If we keep someone in prison with our thoughts, you have to sit at the door to keep them from escaping, and thus you become a prisoner yourself. To free another is to free yourself. And when you give the gift of release, your spirit is healed. And that gift of release isn't just about other relationships. It's about all of that baggage that we hold on to. I don't know about you, but I don't want it to become a prisoner to keep somebody else in jail. I want to give that gift of release and heal whatever is hurting my spirit. So if you have something that's weighing you down, consider that possibly it's time to complete it. So there's a practical part of how we go about eliminating things in our lives that we haven't completed or that are weighing us down. Some things are easier to get rid of because they're less emotional and they have less impact on us. We can go clean a disorganized dress or that overflowing junk drawer in our house, or our disorganized tax records, maybe family pictures that we'd never put into an album. All of those things are less emotionally impacting what we feel. The other incompletes are a lot more difficult. Those personal relationships that we're still hanging on to, those hurtful things that we've said or somebody else has said, those promises that weren't kept, either ours or somebody else's, and the people that we have not yet forgiven. So it's time, and what I'm urging you is in this time of fall to complete those incompletes. Whatever's on your list, just think about what's holding you back. And think about whether or not you can do it right now. Can you get rid of those things? Because if you continue to put them off, it just produces negativity within you. And what we know in this philosophy is that what we hang on to, we get more of. What we put out into the world, that negativity that we're hanging on to, comes back to us multiplied abundantly. So releasing past hurts and angers and resentments, past fear, actually supports us in succeeding faster in being able to have a clear mind to listen to what the divine has to say when we're relaxing into the all. What I love is that there's 4 Ds that you can use in order to complete your incompletes. The first one is do it. Some things it just feels great to do. Cleaning out that junk drawer and having things organized, at least for a little while, feels good. And if it takes longer than that, if it's a bigger project, create a plan to get it done. The second thing you can do is you can delegate it. If it's something that someone else can do for you and you have no interest in doing it, delegate it to someone else. It might even be worth hiring somebody to do. The opening song said, join together with love. Join together with somebody that might enjoy doing what it is you want to do. The third thing is to defer it. If you still want to take care of something yourself that maybe is going to take longer than just a little bit of time, and you know that you're going to have to devote some time to it, you might want to put it on a to-do list or schedule sometime in the future when you know that you're going to do it. And then between that time and the current time, you can just let it offer your thoughts. So if it's creating negative thoughts, you know that on November 1st, I'm going to do that. And the last thing is delete it. Sometimes tasks are embedded in our mind, and what we really need to do is just delete it. Perhaps you didn't. It's something that you didn't even realize you were hanging on to. Some old hurt, some old statement that somebody had said to you, and you haven't yet forgiven them for saying it, and you know that they really didn't mean it, but it was hurtful to you at the time. Maybe it was a should do. Maybe we were shoulding on ourselves. Sometimes we think we should do some things because our parents would have done it, our friends might do it, but it's not something that we really care that much about. So just delete it off your list. Just get rid of it. It makes life easier. Deleting can be really freeing, in addition to the fact that it's an excellent clearing process. For example, if you had all that old fishing gear stored somewhere or those old gardening tools that you're not using, would it really matter? Would you really miss them if you gave them away? That's a way of deleting. You've given them away. You've done something about it. How about old resentments that keep you stuck? Do you truly, really want to keep hanging on to those? Because the old resentment, I've had conversations with people and said, I'm really sorry. I was thinking about a situation, and it might have been a year or two ago. They weren't even thinking about it, but it was on my mind. So sometimes it's just, you have a choice to resolve it or to let it go. Last week I was talking about that orange, and when we squeeze it, we get orange juice, because what's inside is what really matters. And when we complete the things that are keeping us stuck in the past, we get an opportunity to better see who we are on the inside, to better see what's still left after all of that stuff that's keeping us stuck in the past is gone. We really can do what Donna Michaels was talking about in that song. We really can shine. So think of all the unfinished things in your life that have impacted you at some point. What I know is when we have all of those unfinished things, it dims the light that we are in the world, at least a little bit, because they keep us a little bit, there's a little bit of a cover, one of those veils that we talked about several months ago. And when we embrace that we're doing the best that we can do, and that everybody else on the planet's also doing the best that they can do with what they know at the time, it's really easier to forgive. It's easier to let go. It's easier to let all of those leaves just fall by the wayside and get rid of all that old baggage. Carrying around that baggage can get very tiring. Ever been on a trip and you overpacked your luggage and you thought, why did I bring all this extra stuff? Now my luggage is really heavy. Well, the truth is, we carry around a lot of extra baggage, and we could just let it go. Take it out of the suitcase. Get rid of it. Leave it behind. Let somebody else use it. Jack and Cornelia Addington in Your Needs Met wrote these very powerful words, which I think summarize what I've been saying so far. Know that right this moment, all of the past is released. It has no power over you. Recognize the mistakes of the past for what they were. Efforts to do the best you knew at the moment. All of the slights of the past, times when you seem to have been rejected, are now released and forgiven. If there was anyone else involved, know that they too were doing the best that they knew at the moment. The past is released. Tomorrow will have within it all that is necessary for the fullness of that day. I love that definitive statement. The past is released. And tomorrow will have within it all that is necessary for the fullness of today. If we want tomorrow to have within it all that's necessary for the fullness of this day, if we really want to be able to fall into the all, to relax and rest in the arms of the divine, it's time we release the past. It's time that we decide to do, defer, delegate, or delete all of our baggage. We need to decide that we're carrying nothing forward that is not enhancing our ability to live in joy and to live a life that we just love living. So release what you need to release, and then you can fully enjoy your life because you're not carrying around all the extra baggage. So I'm going to challenge you this week to remember to let go, to be more like the trees in the fall, letting go of all the leaves so that they can become something new and allow you to have that space within you for all that newness to show up. And here's a question you can ask yourself. Ask yourself every evening, what choices did I make today to release what needs to be released so I can fully relax into the arms of the divine and be renewed? What choices did I make today to release what needs to be released so I can fully relax into the arms of the divine and be renewed? That's a great question. And if we asked ourselves that every week, every evening, I bet you we would start looking at the things that we hadn't yet released. And just in case you get bogged down in the releasing processes, I want to end up with these words of Edwin Gang. They happen to be in the 4 spiritual laws of prosperity, but they have to do with a lot of things in our life. One great tool is to learn how to say the word oops again. When you watch a baby learn to walk, she'll take a few steps and then fall. And when she does, you don't say, look, you failed, you ignorant thing. Just stay down there and don't try again. This is what we often say to ourselves. It's much gentler and far more empowering to learn to say, whoops, that didn't work. Oh well, I'll just have to try again. So I'm going to challenge you to just say, oops, that didn't work. I'll just have to try again. If you're in the process of trying to release something and that releasing gets stuck, it might take several times to move through all of the baggage that's been held there for years and years. So on that note, let's pray. So I'm just connecting with that divine, knowing that God is the epitome of forgiveness, the epitome of letting go of anything that was not serving, the epitome of just acceptance and non-judgment. And that is my divine inheritance. All of that ability to forgive and forget is right there within me. So I absolutely know the truth that this week, that we as a community are being more like the trees and letting those leaves fall, letting all of those things that are resentments or emotional connections that aren't serving us, or even the physical properties or the contacts that we have that are no longer serving us and keeping us in a positive state, that we're just letting go of all of that. That we're knowing that all of that is absolutely falling away, creating space within us for the bright new future of whatever the divine wants to let us know is our path as we just move forward and relax in the arms and listen. So I am grateful. I'm grateful for the lessons of release. I'm grateful for that lessons of, oops, that didn't work. Guess I'll just have to try something different or try again. Those are great lessons. And I'm grateful that this community comes together to support each other, get somebody to help you. I'm grateful that this community has a sense of support and love for one another. I'm grateful that we say during our affirmation that we're here to support each other, to love one another, to make the world a more joyful place. And it's not just for everybody else, it's for ourselves as well. So it's from all that gratitude that I just release this into the law of mind, spirit, and action, because I know the divine has already said yes, so I can just let it be. I say amen, and let's affirm it together. And so it is.